to check out our whole video, hit the link on the bottom of the screen. That video is available exclusively on odds.com. Let's get to work. Bebsie, we start with Thursday Thanksgiving action. 12:30 p.m. Eastern. Houston Texans 3-7, 1-4 on the road at the Detroit Lions. 4-6, 1-3 at home. Houston opens up at -2.5. It is now at -3. If you wanted 2.5, they're available. They're heavily juiced. This total opened up at 51. There are 51.5s on the board. Again, these are Bet365 openers. We talk about the licensed books here on the show. Birdie, great to see you. We got Delane, the King, ready to rock. Stephen Hennel, Taylor Williams, C-Mac as well joining us. Texans coming off a crucial 27-20 win at home over the Patriots. Deshaun Watson was 28 of 37 for 244 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He's playing very, very well right now. 11 touchdowns, no interceptions over his past 5 games. They continued to struggle on the ground. They only accounted for 55 yards on 19 carries. 36 of those yards were from Watson on 6 carries. So that's how ugly that running game was. 19 yards from Duke Johnson and CJ Prosise. Duke Johnson ran 10 times for 15 yards. Prosise ran 3 times for 4 yards, and he was brought up off of the practice roster. David Johnson on the IR with a concussion, so there's no help coming. Brandon Cooks, 4 for 85. Jordan Akins, 5 of 83. Will Fuller, 6 of 80. J.J. Watt defended 4 passes for the first time in his career, had a tackle for a loss. He's the first lineman in NFL history to defend 4 passes and a tackle for a loss in the same game. The Texans were able to limit New England's potent running game, and that was the big – I mean, that's what got me the under. You know, I only squeaked in by a point, was that they were able to slow down that running game. They were terrible all season long. The 2 previous games, they allowed 346 yards rushing combined, and then they hold the Patriots to 86 yards rushing. Randall Cobb has an injured foot. He's going to be out of the lineup. He is week to week. Kenny Stills still questionable with a quadriceps injury. Left tackle Laramie Tunsil missed Sunday's game because of an undisclosed illness that wasn't COVID-19. He's listed as questionable. Defensive tackle PJ Hall is out of the lineup with a chest injury. Guard Senio Clemente still questionable, still not playing. Fullback Cullen Glaspia, quarterback Josh McCown, and punter Brian Anger are listed as questionable. Bebsie, let's start with the Texans before we get into the Lions, who are coming off a disgraceful 20-0 loss. What did you think of the Texans against the Patriots? Is this a team that's capable of going on a run in the second half?
No, I don't think there's – I still don't think they're a good team. I just think they beat a bad team. And we talked about this last week. You know, the Texans – were underdogs in that game just because the Pats had a great game against the Ravens that was an anomaly because of the weather. So it's like you play good one week and then everyone blows their load on you the next week. But frankly, they're still not a good team. They still can't run the ball. So if they come up against good teams, then they're still going to struggle. Now, they're playing the Detroit Lions this week, and the Detroit Lions got skunked on the weekend by a P.J. Walker-led Carolina team. Look, P.J. made some great throws. I was impressed with him. But, look, I was on Carolina because I thought Bridgewater was going to play, and then I didn't back off them because I didn't think it really mattered because Detroit's not a good football team, and neither is Houston. So this is another – there's another week where it's just 2 bad football teams playing, but I think there is value in betting against Houston this week, again, because I think they're being propped up by their win against the Pats last week, but the Pats aren't good. So it's this weird, like, you beat this bad team, and now all of a sudden we think you're better. So the recency bias is out of control lately, I feel.
Well, your look on the Texans was extremely shrewd. Extremely shrewd and sharp. And then if you plan to fade them this week, I find that extremely interesting. Stephen Hendel says, I'm going to let the line go up to the Lions +5 and take them. Golladay and Swift are coming back, he thinks. Let's talk about these lines coming off that disastrous 20-0 loss at Carolina. Managed just 185 yards, 3 of 14 on 3rd down. They did that against a Carolina defense that allowed its last 4 opponents to put up a combined 131 yards. The last 4 opponents scored on 27 of 36 possessions, yet they shut out the Lions. They had only forced 2 punts in their last 4 games, and they shut out the Lions. Stafford, 18 of 33, 178 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. You have to think, well, is his thumb injury an issue? He didn't take a snap under center all week in practice. He said after the game it didn't bother him, but that's just the way he is. He's listed as questionable. DeAndre Swift out of the lineup. Their running game was pitiful. They ran 17 times for 40 yards. Adrian Peterson ran 7 times for 18 yards. Kerryon Johnson ran 6 times for 17 yards. Hawkinson, who's been battling various injuries, foot injuries, shoulder injuries, made 4 catches for 68 yards. He's listed as questionable with a shoulder injury. The offense was without DeAndre Swift, Kenny Golladay, Danny Amendola. All 3 are listed as questionable this week. They were destroyed by a Carolina team that was missing their starting quarterback and Teddy Bridgewater, star running back and Christian McCaffrey, best offensive lineman Russell Okung, also missing John Miller, cornerback Dante Jackson. The Lions are 25th in the NFL, allowing 258.4 yards a game passing, and that's the only way the Texans can hurt you. Also listed as questionable this week, defensive end Deshaun Hand, defensive end Austin Bryant. Look at this, just keeps going on. Linebacker Jarrett Davis, cornerback Jeff Okudah, wide receiver Marvin Hall, offensive tackle Halapoulivaati Vaitai, and they've been waiting for him to return the lineup for a while. Linebackers Reggie Ragland, Christian Jones, guard Jonah Jackson, safety Willie Harris, and cornerback Mike Ford's in concussion protocol. With all that said, I can understand the Texans being overvalued, but I can't, for the life of me, make a move on the Lions. I mean,
well, that's just it. People who put money on the Lions don't typically have a lot of money. And again, you just read out a laundry list of questionable names. I don't think you can make a move on them now, even if you're going to. You have to see who's going to play. This is a difficult call for that reason. And I didn't say I was going to bet the Lions. I said there's value in the Lions right now because I do think there's going to be a little too much hype on Houston right now. But if none of those guys can play, I don't care if Stafford's thumb is bothering him or not. It's not going to matter. Again, this is a team that just got skunked by a Carolina team that has not had a formidable defense all year. So they're in a lot of trouble right now. This is a sit back for now game. Again, I do think Houston, especially right now, is a better football team. I just think in general, they're going on the road playing Detroit on Thanksgiving. It's not a good spot for them. It's just because Detroit is so injured right now. So I think you have to have a little more clarification on who's playing and who's not.
Yeah. I mean, when I went over all these injuries for the Lions with 3 days to prepare and a coach in Matt Patricia who often seems underprepared, I understand why it's moving to the Texans. My only fear is that I missed the 2.5, which is okay, but the fact that we're overvaluing them after a win at home over the Patriots, the more I go over the Lions, the more I want to fade them. And I guess, so what are you saying, that we should just pump the brakes and don't take to heart what happened last week? Stafford says one game does not a team make. I mean, he doesn't care about what happened last week. He says it doesn't mean that you can't decide things about our offense over one game.
No, and kudos to Stafford for not making an excuse. He did not have a good game. He had an obvious excuse in just saying, the thumb's bothering me a bit. I respect the fact that he didn't do that. And one game does not make a team. But I think we need to pump the brakes here because there's a lot of questionable guys for Detroit. And if all those guys play, then Detroit is a much different team. They're still not a good team, but it's a different team. So for me, there's just not enough information to make an educated guess on this game right now because I don't know who's playing. And that's been a problem between COVID and injuries this year. That has been a very, very difficult thing to pick games unless you're doing it right before game time. It was part of the reason why I laid off so many games last week until Sunday. I added a bunch, but to me, this is something you look at tomorrow night or even early Thursday morning and see if you change your mind on it. But right now it's take Houston and hope that none of those guys can play. But if all those guys can play, I don't know. Detroit, Thanksgiving just feels like they could pull it out. So
I hear what you're saying, and it makes a lot of sense. And we have a full card here. We can't sit here for too long on this game. Charlie Chips is on the under 51. If I had a free move on the total, especially, I guess this is another spot where we need to know more about who's coming back. But just even the way Stafford looked with the thumb issue, even though he's not calling it a problem, the under would be the spot for me. This is why it's 2 hours, 30 minutes. Would you move on the total at this point, or I guess it makes no sense because you need to hear who's coming back?
I mean, again, I think I wait, but if that doesn't move much, I would for sure look at the under as a viable play. And the other thing, somebody mentioned what kind of props I would look at. I would look at Deshaun Watson's rushing props in this. Depending on what it opens at, I'd look for an over, again, because he's the only guy who can run on that team right now. Duke Johnson is not a very good running back. He's okay, but without David Johnson, who's also not very good, they just anemic in the running game. So this that's a prop that I would look at, and yes, absolutely lean under.
I made that bet on the Herbert prop a couple weeks ago, saying they had no run game, and then he only ran 3 times, and I was lucky to get over the 16.5 yards. He broke one, so he ran for 21 yards, but that angle hasn't been working for me of late when there's no running game, saying that he's the only one that will move the ball. But he did put up 36 yards on 6 carries last week. Christian Larson agreeing with the Watson prop. So for us, and Stephen Hennel says 73% of the money on the over for some reason. And I'll pull up what's going on here in all these where the money is situations right now. Okay, so no move at this point for the opener. 12:30 p.m. Thursday, Thanksgiving. We will do something on it.